So I'm Carolyn Ruppel. I'm the Deputy Director of the MIT Energy Initiative, also known as MITEI, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We were oversubscribed. I'm sorry some of you ended up on the wait list because your compatriots failed to show. In any case, first of all, I want to say that our director, Bill Green, sends his regrets. Unfortunately, he was traveling last week, came home, was sick, and so he preferred not to get us all ill, so we should thank him for his consideration. This is MITEI's Earth Day Colloquium, even though it's a few weeks early. And I want to say first a few words about MITEI. We were founded in 2006 by Professor Ernie Moniz, who eventually became the 13th Secretary of Energy under President Obama. He wasn't the 13th for President Obama, he was the second for President Obama. And he was our founding director, and Bob Armstrong, who's here today in the front row, was our longest serving director just before Bill Green took over. He's a professor of chemical engineering. Right now, MITEI is the hub on the campus for research, education, and outreach related to energy. And we work with our 35 member companies to advance solutions towards the energy transition. So our goals are very attuned to some of what we're going to hear about today: bolstering energy security, increasing access to affordable energy, and finally, of course, mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. This is our 20th year, as I said, so we're celebrating our anniversary all year. In those 20 years, we've deployed nearly $1 billion of funding across this campus to 25 departments, labs, and centers for research projects. We've funded over 1,700 graduate students, over 1,000 research projects, and 1,100 UROPs and counting, and we're very proud of the UROPs. And every year, we enroll about 25,000 learners in our online courses. And we also, of course, some of you know, run the we run the Energy Studies minor for MIT undergraduates. And many of you are here because you're amongst our 18,000 subscribers to our weekly newsletter. So we're very active in outreach, and today we have an extremely special guest, Dr. Fatih Birol, who's the Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, or the IEA. This is the last of our series of MITEI Presents seminars for this year, and as I said, the Earth Day Colloquium, we're extremely pleased to have him here. Dr. Birol and his Chief of Staff, Amos Brahma, just flew in from Paris a few hours ago, so we are particularly grateful that they're still standing. As most of us know, Dr. Birol's been in the news almost every day for the last 6 weeks with the events that are going on in the world. And in February, Bill Green was very fortunate to be able to go to Paris to attend the IEA Innovation Forum. And MITEI looks forward to the chance to work more closely with the IEA in the future. Dr. Birol now leads the IEA, but I'd like to say to all of you students out there, he started there in the mid-1990s as a junior analyst and has worked his way up to the very top position. So it's still possible. Dr. Birol holds a bachelor's degree from Istanbul Technical University, and he has both a master's and PhD in energy economics from the Technical University of Vienna. He also chairs the advisory board for the World Economic Forum, which you've probably heard of, and I won't even list all of his high honors. He's received the highest honors from many European countries, Middle Eastern, and Asian countries as well. He frequently appears, I'm sure you know, on the list of the world's most influential people. The format today is that Dr. Birol is going to give a few remarks without slides, and then he's going to engage in a fireside chat, and I will introduce Professor Chris Knittel at the time that we start the fireside chat. And without further delay, let's welcome Dr. Birol to the podium.
Very many thanks for inviting me to this very prestigious institute. Before coming here, I had a brief chat at the institute, and I remember that I was there several years ago, and it was a historic day. Not for me as well, but for Ernie Moniz. I tell you why. He invited me. We had a discussion. I remember we discussed on nuclear power with the faculty there, and he drove me with his car to somewhere, maybe to a cafe or to a restaurant. And it was the day before the President Obama was going to announce who will be the secretary those days. They were in the I read papers and the and I saw his name. I said, Ernie, you will get it. He said, I don't think so. There are many others. I said, you will get it. And we had a bet. I won, but he became the Secretary of Energy, and he never paid back, of course. So this is the thing. And the funny thing is, we tried to meet, and I will tell you in a moment, we are based in Paris. I came from Paris here today, in fact, almost two and a half hours ago, and he flew to Paris now. He's in Paris, but I wanted to really acknowledge what a great scientist, what a great colleague he is, and also both very nice to see you here. We worked also many years together. So I, in fact, together with my colleague, Mr. Bromhead, we just came from Paris, and the world is in a difficult situation, and so I spent the last 2 hours with a very important occupation, which is for you to follow the football match of my football team, Galatasaray. So this was a very important, and I am very happy we won. So it is so I'm very relaxed now. So dear colleagues, I thought I could do the following. Not everybody knows what IEA is, I guess, here. I want to tell you a bit more about our institution, what we are doing, and so on. And afterwards, I understand we had a discussion, a dialogue, and you can ask me anything you want, and I will try to answer them. So International Energy Agency is an intergovernmental organization. Okay? We are based in Paris. We were founded in 1974 after the first the oil price shock as a oil security organization. And the main preoccupation of the organization was oil, and we work on that. And it continued more or less like this. Our mandate, who is working there, and the countries, member countries. In 2015, so I was lucky that, thank you very much for mentioning, I became the head of the IEA, and I came with a modernization of the IEA program. So modernization had 3 important strategies. The first one was energy security, we said at that time, is bigger than oil security. So we started to work on not only oil, which is very important, but also gas, electricity, critical minerals supply chains. We broadened the energy security definition there. The second thing is, until that moment, 2015, IEA member governments were confined to the advanced economies. US, Canada, European countries, Japan, Korea, Austria, and New Zealand. And the strategy was opening the doors of the IEA to emerging world. So in the last 10 years, we have received many countries as part of the IEA family in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa. And 2015, the share of our member countries in global energy was less than 40%, all the members, and today it is over 80%. So a big change there. So we work with more and more with the emerging countries, and if you wish, I can explain why we did it. The third one is making the IEA a clean energy technology hub. So today, dear colleagues at the IEA, as we discussed a few minutes ago, we are following more than 600 technologies, monitor them, the investment, the penetration of the markets, the maturity, and so on, and all the data is there. And this is one of our strengths. We have a group of about 100 colleagues working on it. So these are the 3 areas that we have broadened the mandate of the IEA. Again, we grew a lot. 2015, we are about 200 people. And as of today, we are the number of colleagues working at IE are about 500 people. And our budget is really minuscule, I can tell you. Our budget is 22 million euros. And it didn't change much in the last years. And this is something that we are, as many international organizations, we are under big financial difficulty. The world, when you look at the world, I'm sure we will talk in a minute, but the wind is not blowing necessarily in the direction of international cooperation, multilateral organizations. So, but despite that, I think the IEA has a very strong voice when it comes to energy security. In the last few weeks, we see the importance of the energy security. When it comes to new technologies, when it comes to addressing other big crises, such as in Africa, access to energy or the climate change. So we are doing this. And we are not an organization, institution, that we are doing the research just to make the research, which is very important, but our job is to have a real world impact. And we are having this, and we are very happy doing this. And we have, when we write our reports, which is one of our strengths, our reports, we make sure that our reports are written and, more important, convey the messages in a way that everybody can understand. Not only the energy people, but the policymakers, men or women in the street, and everybody can understand, but still without compromising the rigor of the scientific and analytical background. What we are doing is, first of all, we have a lot of data. In the energy world, any data you want to have, you can find it at the IEA. About oil, coal, electric cars, hydrogen, nuclear power, SMRs, everything. And everything about energy and energy issues, we have data. I tell my colleagues, in difficult times, I have a motto. I say, data always wins. Sometimes it takes some time, but at the end of the day, data always wins. We have a lot of data, and many of this data, we make it public, and it is the strength of our work. Based on this data, we make analysis, we make reports, and we make, on the basis of that, some recommendations to the governments, to the industry, and so on. And we are, even though we work for governments, we are not scared or timid to say that if we don't agree with the energy policy of our member countries. I can give you many examples on that, but we say, we are not a political organization, but we say what we think is right, what we think is wrong, and this is one of the areas that we focus. Maybe a few other things. We have of course, energy security is our main preoccupation, but we work on the issues that doesn't get so much attention, but it's still important. So one of my preoccupations, some of you may know, is the energy poverty in Africa. So this is it doesn't make the headlines, but it's almost 30 years I work on this, and and IEA works on that, and it is something very important. We are in the headlines in all the newspapers since 6 weeks. It brings you, if you work on the oil and energy security, but if you work on the And Africa, it doesn't bring you headlines, but it brings something else, which is the integrity of research and integrity of being a good person and working for the betterment of this world. Maybe I finish by saying the following and, about the IEA. In the international organizations, I don't know how many of you know international organizations. There are different intergovernmental organizations, I should say, intergovernmental organizations. There are two areas that we want to make sure that we make a difference since 10 years, even longer. One of them is the nimbleness. We are a very nimble organization, because international organizations have a reputation, unfortunately, that they are very slow, very bureaucratic, but this is true, by the way, in many international organizations. I cannot say that, but we are, we are very nimble, action-oriented, and we are, if there is a crisis, maybe we'll talk about the crisis and give examples. We move very quickly, very, very quickly. This is nimbleness. The second one is that when I became the head of the IEA, I was talking to the colleagues, what am I going to do? Because before I became the head of the IEA, I didn't have much management experience, because before me, for example, they were all the head of the IEA were ministers. Before me, was Minister of Economy of Netherlands, before that Minister of France, and my only management experience was I was coaching the IEA football team, so it was my management, which is not very easy, by the way, I should tell you. So, but when I told them I will do something, I will try to do something. When we hire people, fire people, extend the contracts, with one word, meritocracy. So we are able to apply meritocracy in our staff policies as much as possible. I am telling this nimbleness and meritocracy to you because I want to make sure that you understand the IEA a bit better, because there is a lump of there are many good international organizations in the world, but the reputation sometimes is not very good. So I wanted to make sure that we are trying to be, at least in these two aspects, a bit different. So with this, this is the information I want to give you about the IEA, International Energy Agency, and I guess we are going to have some questions now. And if you ask me, I go here? Okay. Yes. If you want to ask me any questions here. Okay.
I just want to take a second to introduce Professor Chris Knittel, who will be conducting the fireside chat with Dr. Barol. Many of you know Chris. He's the George P. Schultz Professor of Energy Economics at the Sloan School, and he's also the Associate Dean for Climate and Sustainability. And important for MITEI, he's the Director of the Center for Energy and Environmental Policy Research, CEPR, with which we work very closely. So, Chris?
Great, thanks. First, thanks for coming. I think everyone would have understood if you canceled this trip. So I'm going to start, actually, the elephant is in the room, but I'll start with that second. Since there's a ton of students in the room, many of my students that I saw, what are some opportunities that students have with the IEA? Or do you have opportunities for smart?
Meritocracy. So that, no, what we do is, if there are students here, and during their studies, we have this internship programs. They can come and work with us. I think we have different 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year, different programs. They can come and work with us. Unfortunately, we are based in Paris, so this is about because this is a beautiful place to work. And our offices, okay, I can make some nice publicity. Our office is about 100 meters away from the Eiffel Tower. So this is and very close to River Seine. So we pay also some pocket money if they are good Some of them, many of them, in fact, when they finish, they go back to their universities and they come back. They like to work there. But we are, as I said, for us, it is the idea is to serve the interests of public interest. We work with many companies around, energy companies, the financial institutions, but the spirit is make this world a better place, look after the interests of wider public.
That's great. Yeah. I wanted to make sure we got that in. So, and just for ground rules, I'm going to turn it over to the audience in about 13 minutes. So I just have a few questions. Now we'll get to the elephant in the room. Obviously, there's been a lot of upheaval in the Middle East over the past few weeks. I would just love to hear your take on where we are as of 3 o'clock today or 4 o'clock today, but and the role that IEA is playing, especially in strategic petroleum reserves and coordinating across countries.
Of course. So, first of all, I think the world. This is, as I said, the following. Okay, this is the largest ever energy crisis we ever had in the world. So there were 3 big ones in the last years. One of them is 1973, the big oil crisis. Against 79, another big oil crisis. 2 of them, which both of them led the world economy to recession. Many countries, especially developing countries, fell in the spiral of debt problems, etc. These 2 big oil crises. Plus, recently, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there was a gas crisis, natural gas crisis. So the current crisis, the amount of oil and gas we lost, is bigger than all these 3 put together. Plus, this famous city of Hormuz, not only oil and gas passed through there, but also very important vital commodities for global economy. Petrochemicals, fertilizers, very important for the agriculture sector, helium, many other things which are critically important for the supply chain. So therefore, this is the biggest ever crisis we ever faced. Now, what IEA did, first of all, when it started, I told my colleagues, we don't talk to press. Leave it as it is, because it's a very, very political issue. But after 3 weeks, I said, I'm going to go and talk to press, because the policymakers didn't understand the scale of the problem. So what IEA has done, the first thing is make the people understand what a big issue it is. This is number 1 we did. Number 2, our member countries, to be a member of the IEA, they need to have significant amount of oil stocks reserved at the corner, and they are there to bring it to the markets when there is a disruption, for geopolitical reasons, for there can be a earthquake somewhere and a natural disaster. So what we have done is that since the disruption was so big, we brought all the countries together, which is not easy, by the way, all the countries together, and we release 400 million barrels of oil, which is the highest ever we have done. This brought the prices $20 down, comfort the market. So this is the second thing. Third thing, what we have done is, I have been always on the phone with the ministers, the heads of governments, different parts of the world, with Saudi Arabia, with United States, with Japan, with, Korea, Brazil, all the countries, try to coordinate to support each other. And fourth, and maybe finally, we have also released some 10 recommendations how we can save oil in a hurry. It may not apply to this country, but in many countries, for example, we are saying that if you reduce the speed limits by 10 kilometers per hour, you can save so much oil. Or if you work from home 1 day per week, you can save this. Or if you give more incentive to public transportation, because we may have this problem. And I hope we will not come to that level that the citizens need to save oil, but we want to make sure, and some countries are doing it in Europe, for example.
Like you said, it's not just oil, it's also gas.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
so do you have recommendations on saving, because the gas is going into power plants, electricity, energy efficiency investments?
Exactly, gas, because it is oil and gas, LNG. Lots of the LNG terminals were affected from that. We have also suggestions for natural gas as well, especially in the Asian countries. Mm-hmm. And this is, you will see, maybe we talk about gas, but gas industry needs to think very carefully, because gas industry, natural gas industry, presented itself, natural gas being a reliable, affordable, and flexible source of energy. But in the last 4 years, we had 2 major gas crises in Russia and now. Is it still reliable?
Right.
It is still flexible. It is still affordable. So I think after these 2 big crises, natural gas industry needs to work hard to regain its brand that they brand themselves. It will not be, many things will change after this, but it is one of the things.
Unfortunately, there's another fossil fuel who's willing to step in for natural gas.
Definitely, it is already stepping in, which is coal. And in many countries, we are seeing, especially in Asia, and especially for power plants which are dual-fired power plants, and also some other industries, we are seeing this. You know, what is the issue is, this crisis, you hear the voice of the Europeans, Americans, Japanese, Australians, but the countries who are suffering the most are the developing countries, energy important developing countries. Right. Their financial muscles are much weaker, and their currencies are much weaker, and they are in some of them are in a big trouble. But we don't hear much from them.
Yeah, and at least the U.S. can weather the storm because we produce a lot of oil, and our natural gas is
definitely
effectively stuck here, at least a lot.
Definitely,
big chunk of it.
But I have to tell you this: even in the United States, since we have one oil prices, if the prices go up, the prices will also go up here.
Yeah. So I wanted to get, I'm going to start with the glasses half full question, and then I'll talk about something you mentioned. In the 70s, at least in the U.S., the response to the oil shocks were long-run speed limits in the U.S. and fuel economy standards.
CAFE standards.
Yeah, exactly. So the policymakers were quick to act in response. I haven't seen any of those discussions operating here. I'm wondering what you think the long-term policy implications, not just maybe ignore the U.S. for a second, but worldwide. Will there be a rush toward renewables? Will there be a rush toward oil-saving technologies?
So, it is a very important issue, and I will. I said already a few things on that, but I will come to that in a few weeks, because what happened now can well be a reason for redrawing the global energy map. Mm-hmm. As you rightly said, when we go to the 1970s, I can tell you at least 2 things what happened as a response to that. There was a big response. One of them is there was a big wave of building nuclear power plants. Yep. Huge. In US, Canada, Europe, Japan, Korea, big. To be honest with you, today, 45% of the nuclear power plants operating today are built as a response to those crises still. Nuclear came. This is number 1. Number 2 is what you mentioned. Not only in the United States, but also in Europe and Japan, the car manufacturing industry went to a big transformation. Before the crisis, oil crisis, an average car needed about 20 liters of gasoline to go 100 kilometers. And in a short period of time, it went down to 10 liters as a result of fuel efficiency. Many car manufacturers make their engines much stronger. In Europe, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the renewable annual installations increased by a factor of 3 as a response. Now, what I am thinking, what will happen, I will put my thoughts much more structured, but I'm thinking of it already. One of them is we will still get a big push for nuclear power, including the small modular reactors. Small modular reactors are already in the process, but it can be even earlier, and many nuclear push will come. Second, renewables will be the biggest beneficiaries here, I see. And third, again, may not happen in the United States, but many countries, especially in Asia, we will see the penetration of electric vehicles, cars and trucks. Why I'm saying Asia is important? Because Asia is also the center of global oil demand growth. So these are the 3 things that we are going to see. There will be a reaction to that, and it will change the things. And also, what will also change is that in the energy trade, whom you buy fuel X, technology Y, countries will be more careful now whom I am trading with. Mm-hmm. A country wants to build a nuclear power plant. You have to be very careful whom you are going to buy the technology from. Because nuclear, when you build a nuclear power plant, decide with country A and country B, it is like a Catholic marriage. You can't get divorced 50 years.
Yeah.
So you are condemned to that.
The countries usually run the plants.
Exactly. So if you make a country, choose a country that is going to use as a leverage to you, or it can be a long-term contracts of so the energy security premium will be a factor of the energy trade in the future, in addition to the cost of energy, the quality of the energy, technology, blah, blah, blah. But this will come. Can you believe it? Today, we all talk about, many people didn't know maybe it exists, the Hormuz Strait.
Yeah.
This is the entire global economy. Okay? Trillions of dollars of global economy is now hostage of 50 kilometers of a strait, a disruption there. This is really insane. Is it really, there are so much technologies, fuels, and is it really, does it make sense or not? I think people will understand it doesn't make sense. We have to find other ways. So there will be a change as a response to this crisis. It will take some time. And it is intellectual, it is very interesting, very exciting, and it is very important. The brains like in the MIT, I think there is a job for you to think about this. How should be the response to have a more secure but also more sustainable future for everybody?
And more resilient.
Exactly, more resilient, exactly, completely
right. Since we're both economists, I'll end on kind of
I am not sure. I am first, I studied engineering. Nobody is perfect.
Oh, wait a minute. Energy economics. Your PhD's in energy economics. You brought up the global economies being held hostage now. I think it's at some point 5 of the last 7 recessions immediately followed a spike in oil prices.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on, now I would argue that this economy or this world is potentially more resilient to an oil shock, but I'm wondering whether you think a recession is a no-brainer, or can we?
I think the global economy will be damaged for sure, but it will depend on when we are going to see the level of damage will depend on when we will see there will be a normal operation of energy facilities in the Middle East. You know, I said we looked at data today, as of 2 hours ago, 80 facilities, energy facilities in Middle East are damaged. Oil fields, gas fields, refineries, LNG terminals, the pipelines, and of these 80 energy facilities damaged, more than 1/3 are severely or very severely damaged.
Which is another big difference from the 70s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it will be, in my view, not easy for the global economy. And but again, I believe who will be suffering under this economic damage will be mainly developing countries. Plus, which is different from 70s, we may well see, as a result of the disruption for fertilizers, problem with the food security and food prices.
Right.
So this is, it's come on top of the energy prices. So therefore, I see a risk for the global economy.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to turn it. I really wanted to get into what futures prices are doing because I don't think they seem to understand what you just said. But let's turn it to the audience. We have microphones, and what we do ask is we want to do rapid fire questions. We want to get as many questions as we can. So no speeches, just questions. So do we want to walk the microphone to the? Yeah. Okay. I'll start in the very middle there, the center of.
Dr. Burrell, thank you for coming. I'm Alex. I'm at Boston University studying economics. What are you seeing that capital allocators can do to reduce the risk of investing in these emerging economies in energy and in critical minerals infrastructure that is required for energy?
So to invest in these countries, in the emerging and developing countries, is currently seen as a risky business. The cost of capital, for example, and solar energy. Okay, in Africa, if you want to build a solar plant, the cost of capital is 4 to 5 times higher than in Europe. It's completely crazy, because the risk associated with this is very high. What needs to happen, in my view, is that at least this one, multinational institutions such as the World Bank, the IMF, the African Development Bank, should provide some mechanisms in order to receive this perceived risk from outside and the countries themselves, in order to make sure that those risks, especially the political and macroeconomic risks, are minimized. Otherwise, I am really pessimistic about especially this access to energy issue. It is, I give you one example. I mean, this is really, I'll give you data. Okay, so in Africa today, every second person, 50% of the people have no access to electricity. This is number one. Number two, Africa gets today the highest amount of solar radiation, best quality. And third, today, solar is one of the cheapest form of generating electricity. This is three things. And yet, I come to the point, the amount of the solar plants installed in the entire sub-Saharan Africa, think about the map, entire sub-Saharan Africa, is less than solar plants installed in Belgium. Okay, Belgium, think about, I mean, I like Belgium, it's a small country, and the entire sub-Saharan Africa, and people are there living in dark.
Does that include personal solar panels?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah. So this is really tragic. And we are not fixing this problem. And therefore, how to invest there, it cannot be left to the markets. There should be some international public intervention there, otherwise the capital will not flow there as we would like to see. So it was long, but I just wanted to say, yeah.
In the very back there. Oh.
No, so I wanted to ask you, we went from negative prices of oil during the pandemic, and now we have infinite prices. Is the oil prices being too speculative? Is it operating in a too reactive way? Is there anything that can be done to avoid these swings in prices in the span of 5 years?
I think it is not speculative. There is a speculation there too, but we lost huge amount of oil. I mean, this is the amount of oil we lost is more than 15% of oil consumption in the world. From almost one day to another, utilities and prices are high. But if you don't want to see that in your economy, you have to look other options. About 45% of the oil is used in transportation sector today. And I can tell you that the people who are like you, dear colleague, who are complaining of the volatility and the level of the oil prices, the governments and the citizens will look at the electrified version of the transportation sector. So this would be, for example, today, when you look one country who is less affected from the high oil prices is China. Because in China today, 60% of the cars sold are electric cars. And this was why China did it is it is because, not because of the environmental reasons, it was the energy security reason as well. So as long as the world economy relies on oil, the volatility of the oil prices will have an impact on the global and national economies. But I know that MIT is a strong place, even though it fell down.
We had them very back there.
Yeah, thank you for the nice talk. So I'm curious, you mentioned this thread of the world being in stranglehold because of the Middle East in terms of its energy resources. I'm wondering, what is the future of the Middle East as an international hub of energy? So not only will it have its traditional energy sources of fossil fuels, which will be long-lasting, but the Middle East was positioning itself as a source of also more renewable energy. So, for example, Japan wanted to rely strongly on Qatari ammonia as a source of hydrogen and then crack that locally. So how do you see the Middle East being a source of energy in the future, given that it's so volatile?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to make clear that I don't think that the Middle East is responsible from what's happening. So I don't want to say that. I didn't say that. It is not the Middle East provided a lot of oil and gas to the markets. If you don't buy it, you don't. If you don't want it, you don't buy it. As a customer, people want it, and therefore they bought it. This is number one. Number two, what I'm saying is, this one state of Hormuz. The 50 kilometers of a state of Hormuz is determining the economic destiny of the world. Takes it hostage. There was I don't know if many people my age may know this first Dire Straits. There was a group like that. It was one of the Dire Straits. So I think that the Middle East cannot be put in a homogeneous situation. I give it an example. I cannot put today the situation of Saudi Arabia and Iraq at the same thing. Today, Iraq, about 90% of the government revenues of Iraq comes from oil revenues, and oil revenues, the government, with this money, government pays 15 million people's salaries, the workers, pensionists, and all of these things, and now it is completely comes to government treasury, comes to bankruptcy situation. But when you look at some of the Gulf countries, they are not in the same situation. So what I'm afraid is, after this thing is finished, some of the countries will come back faster because they have stronger financial muscles, better engineering capabilities, and better technologies, whereas other countries will suffer. But In Middle East, in addition to oil and gas, recently, we see that the solar is getting a lot of attention. In Saudi Arabia, for example, there is a big push to replace the use of crude oil for electricity generation by solar. I mean, this is, in fact, when you think about using crude oil for electricity generation, is economically, I don't know what is the word I can, it's like something like to run your car, you use Chanel 5, parfum. So it's something along those lines. So it is therefore, solar is growing, but not at the level that I would like to see. What I'm afraid is, maybe finish the Middle East thing. In Middle East, many countries had the vision 2030, vision this, modernize this, diversify this, building these cities, building that cities. I'm afraid some of those long-term projects which require substantial amount of financial commitments may be delayed or even shelved.
I think we have time for one more. Then I have a soccer question. We'll take since it's the easiest, we'll take that hand right there.
Hi, thank you for visiting. My name is Abhijit Sarkar. We're consultants and work with the industries and electrical companies, and so part of the space. My question is that after the 70s, you saw kind of a discrete jump in the price of oil, right? And now we have this situation you described, kind of the third of the facilities are long-term damage and whatnot. Do you see kind of a significant step up in the price of oil and gas because if you look at the futures, 2 year out futures, 2.5, it's not quite pricing it in yet. So the question is, obviously that'll have massive implications on the US, major economies like China and India. So it changes. So if the price of oil another 40% more, 50% more, what is your view on what have you thought about that?
Yeah. So I think if there was a good news yesterday, there was a ceasefire. And if this ceasefire provides confidence to the actors there, and if it turns to be that there is a peace, there is a settlement of the peace, and it will be there with us without major disruptions again months to come, I expect that the oil and the gas production from the region will start. First of all, there are about 200 cargos now waiting, loaded there. They will slowly come to the markets. About 11 LNG carriers waiting there. They will come to the markets. But I don't think that in a very short period of time we will go back where we were before the war. And this may keep the prices at elevated levels. And this is surely not a good news, especially in the emerging world. And I would be surprised if we don't see significant inflationary pressures in Asian developing countries, in Africa, and in Latin America. In addition to that, as I said before, petrochemical industry, the fertilizers, we will discover how important those commodities are for the supply chains we have. Oh, did we need this one? Helium. What is helium? You will see in a few days what is helium when you want to buy a iPhone or whatever. So I expect a bit of a volatility in the markets in the best sense. But this is my best scenario is based on the fact that the ceasefire turns into a final settlement of the terms, and it provides confidence to the actors there to operate as they were doing before.
And the timing of fertilizer, obviously you need it at a specific point in time
Exactly.
in the growing
Exactly.
phase, and
Exactly.
we might be beyond that.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah,
Yes,
so-
please.
So I just want to ask your opinion about AI in terms of the global energy market. Because recently China is proposal this token economics, saying China is planning to sell a lot of cheap electricity through providing the computing power to U.S. and other countries, because most of the servers are located in the Inner Mongolia, where the energy price is very cheap. So I just wonder how you think about this trading through the computing power and how it's shaped the global
Okay,
energy
okay.
market.
So, okay, I will give you a shorter answer than your question. I believe, I am not an AI person, but I believe AI may well be the most consequential technological innovation to date. Okay, and there is a big AI race, first among three countries: US, China, and Europe, and then there is a second category. And what will determine who will win the race, this race? There are two components: the technology, and the second one is the amount and the affordability of the electricity prices. There is no AI without electricity. So therefore, if we don't have electricity enough, timely, you are in trouble. If you have a lot of electricity, and if it is cheap, you are a few steps ahead of the other countries. And electricity is not only the renewables, it will be nuclear power, I believe the small modular reactors. In some cases, it will be coal, for example, in China. But I think electricity's importance will be much better understood in the context of AI, because one medium-sized data center consumes electricity as much as 200,000 households, and they need 24/7. And this will also bring many technologies together with the renewables at the center, including the battery storage. So I just want
I think SoftBank has a plan for a 10 gigawatt data
exactly.
center. So
Exactly.
line
yeah.
up those nuclear plants.
Nuclear
Yeah.
plants, and China. I mean, one thing is important here. I mean, for the United States, or some other countries, I shouldn't say United States, some countries have a lot of gas. But having a gas doesn't mean having electricity from gas, because you need the turbines. Turbines,
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And turbines, you need 6-7 years now
Yeah.
in Europe or in US, and China is a better position than the others. For the World Cup, I can tell you.
I think the U.S. and Turkey are in the same group.
Yes, exactly. I will not. Because
So should we bet? I know you bet with Ernie in the past. Maybe
Yes,
we
sir.
should place a bet here.
By the way,
I pay my bets, by the way.
Ernie plays football. I don't know if
Yes, he
anybody
does,
knows that.
yeah.
Like me, despite our age. I can tell you that I really hope, you will not like it now, what I'm going to say. I really hope it will be a developing country who becomes a champion. So this is what I want. It can be from Africa or Latin America or somewhere else. I have of course, we all have a football lovers have a weak spot for Brazil, of course.
Right.
But it is great that it's happening in the United States and in Canada as well. And I hope that everything will go very smoothly there.
That's great. Great. Carolyn.
Thank you. Stay seated, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. As we said, this is our last MITEI seminar for this semester. We'll see you all in the fall to celebrate our 20th anniversary. I want to thank Dr. Barol and Chris Canill especially for stepping up at the last minute for us. We really appreciate it. Thank you again for coming.